This is a song that I picked up. I was channel surfing. Must have been after I came home. But it fits my next stop very well. It's a great song, relatively new, from a wonderful artist named Richard Marx. And Richard Marx was in his heyday, probably more in the 80s. But he was on a Grammys, a night at the Grammys Museum, where they do an interview with an artist. They do an interview for the first half of the show, and then for the second part of the show, the artist does an acoustic, basically an acoustic set. And he sat down at the piano and he played this song, and it's a song he wrote for his parents. And when I left Massachusetts, I went home. And I don't get home nearly enough, and I don't go home as often because both my parents are gone. And but I still have an aunt, and my cousins are back there. So I went back to Binghamton, New York, which is where I'm from. I'm a Yankee, can't get away from it. And every time, and the great thing about it, there's three things that will happen, or at least three things that will happen when I go home every time. I always get to visit with my cousins. We always go out to a great Italian restaurant, because that's where I grew up, and Italian food was part of our life. And we always go out to a great Italian restaurant to eat, and I always go by the cemetery and say how do to the parents, who are there. My mom and dad are buried in a plot with my my grandfather paternal, and his two wives. Go figure. And he's sandwiched in between the two of them, and so I try to go, and my second grandmother didn't like my mother, and she's buried, she and my dad are buried right next to my grandmother, to Anna, and she doesn't like my mother, so I really go back and I want to check and make sure nobody's moved. I always call a couple weeks ahead and make sure they can go trim around everything, but I take a measuring tape, and I want to make sure nobody's like trying to move out of where they are. I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet. I was certain Anna was going to, like, figure out a way out of there.